everyone, welcome to lesson 10.4B. I've entitled this video, The End of the War. This video is going to cover pages 288 to 289. A turning point at Plattsburgh. While British forces were attacking Washington and Baltimore, British General Sir George Prevost was moving into New York from Canada. Leading more than 10,000 British soldiers, his goal was to capture Plattsburgh, a key city on the shore of Lake Champlain, and you can see that with the arrow right here. An American naval force on the lake defeated the British fleet in September 1814. Fearing the Americans would surround them, the British retreated into Canada. Question number 1. What were the British forced to do after the Battle of Lake Champlain? They were forced to retreat into Canada. The Battle of Lake Champlain convinced the British that the war in North America was too costly and unnecessary. They had defeated Napoleon in Europe. To keep fighting the United States would result in little gain and was not worth the effort. And I love this quote from Benjamin Franklin about wars. Great quote. Question number 2. How did the Battle of Lake Champlain change the outcome of the war? It made the British realize that fighting this war was no longer necessary, it was too costly, and it was time to put it to an end. The end of the war. In December 1814, American and British representatives met in Ghent, Belgium, to sign a peace treaty agreement. The Treaty of Ghent did not change any existing borders. There was no mention of the impressment of sailors. Even neutral rights had become a dead issue since Napoleon's defeat. And as Pierre Berton said, and you gotta love his picture here posing with his cat, it was as if no war had been fought, or to put it more bluntly, as if the war that was fought for no good reason. For nothing has changed. Everything is as it was at the beginning, save for the graves of those who, it now appears, have fought for a trifle. Lake Erie and Fort McHenry will go into the American history books, Queenston Heights and Chrysler's Farm into the Canadian, but without the gore, the stench, the disease, the terror, the conniving, and the imbecilities that march with every army. Question number 3. What peace treaty ended the War of 1812? The Treaty of Ghent. Question 4. What unusual terms were decided at the Treaty of Ghent? Normally in wars, somebody gains something, some sort of land or territory or money or something of note. This treaty was unusual that no one got anything. They went back to just the way things had been at the start of the war. One final ferocious battle occurred before word of the treaty reached the United States. On January 8, 1815, the British advanced on New Orleans. Waiting for them was Andrew Jackson and his troops. The redcoats were no match for Jackson's soldiers, who hid behind thick cotton bales. The bales absorbed the British bullets, while the British advancing in the open provided easy targets for American troops. In a short but gruesome battle, hundreds of British soldiers were killed. At the Battle of New Orleans, Americans achieved a decisive victory. Andrew Jackson became a hero whose fame would help him win the presidency in 1828. Question 5. Even though the war was officially over, why was the Battle of New Orleans an important moment in American history? Because it gave us a war hero in the name of Andrew Jackson, and that fame would help propel him to becoming president in 1828, and he would be a very significant president in American history. Nationalism and new respect. From the start, New England Federalists had opposed Mr. Madison's war. These unhappy Federalists gathered in December of 1814 at the Hartford Convention in Connecticut. A few favored secession, but most wanted to remain with the Union. To protect their interests, they made a list of proposed amendments to the Constitution. Question number 6. Which group of Americans had been against Mr. Madison's war from the beginning of the war? That was the Federalists in the New England states. Question 7. What happened at the Hartford Convention? At the Hartford Convention, the Federalists decided, hey, maybe we should secede. Now, that wasn't a lot of them, but there were a few that did mention leaving the country. But most decided they would prefer to stay. But they did come up with a list of amendments that would not be proposed or accepted. The Federalist grievances seemed unpatriotic in the triumph following the war. The party lost the public's respect and disappeared as a political force, leaving only one significant political party. The Warhawks took over leadership of the Republican Party and carried on the Federalist belief in a strong national government. The Warhawks favored trade, Western expansion, the energetic development of the economy, and a strong army and navy. And the way I like to think of it is, if you've learned about in science how an amoeba takes over food, think of the Republican Party as this amoeba, and the small shrinking Federalist Party as this little bitty thing here that the amoeba wants to eat. So the amoeba surrounds it, envelops it, and consumes it, and it becomes a part of the amoeba. If you think about it, basically the Republican Party at one point, as Jefferson, had stood for a small government, strong state governments. Well, in this case, now the Federalist Party part about having a strong national government sort of became a part of the Republican Party. And so that is the end of the Federalist Party. Which leads us to question 8. If the death of Alexander Hamilton had been the beginning of the end for the Federalist Party, how did the War of 1812 finish them off for good? Well, they're complaining about and whining about and wanting to possibly secede from the country because of the War of 1812. Americans saw that as unpatriotic, and because we came out of it, while it was a tie, we did gain a new sense of patriotism. Americans thought, you were on the losing side of that argument. Question number 9. What did the Warhawks in the Republican Party favor for America? They wanted now a strong national government. They wanted trade. They wanted to expand into the West. They wanted our economy to develop. And they wanted us to have a strong army and strong navy. And question number 10. Even though the War of 1812 was essentially a tie, what were some things that America took from it? And I just realized that's on this slide. Americans felt a new sense of patriotism and a strong national identity after the War of 1812. The young nation also gained new respect from other nations around the world. So to answer that question 10, Americans themselves felt a new sense of patriotism, like, hey, we held our own, and it made us also a stronger country in the world stage. Other countries are like, okay, this United States, they may be something to reckon with in the future. So we gained new patriotism and confidence in ourselves, and around the world, they gained a new respect for the United States of America. Well, thank you for watching. Before we go, Jackson does not simply go through the War of 1812 and not come out famous. Thank you so much for watching, and have a great day.